Now we've seen that when we look at opportunity cost, we're saying, well, what's the cost of buying one more burger? What's the cost of one more beer? What's the cost of one more something? And the opportunity cost showed us that. We can increase we can buy one more burger, and the opportunity cost was 4 bus tickets. And that's what's called a marginal analysis. We're examining the benefits and costs of choosing a little more or a little less of a good. And the opportunity cost shows us that right away. What about the benefits? We've seen the opportunity cost of a decision. What are the benefits? Well, the benefits of a decision are the satisfaction we get. If I choose to buy one more burger, okay, I'm going to give up 4 tickets. That's the cost. But I also get the benefit of consuming one more burger. And economists like measuring, again, things at the margin. We tend to look at what's the additional cost of one more burger. What's the additional benefit of one more burger? And we'll try to use these measures of marginal benefit and marginal cost when we make decisions. Part of the benefit side, we looked at cost. Part of the benefit side is the belief in the understanding, that there is a diminishing marginal utility. As we consume more and more and more of a good, the additional benefit will decrease. So I can eat a whole bunch of burgers, but at some point, the additional value of giving up, I'm going to give up another 4 tickets. At one point, I'm going to say, hey, I had enough burgers. I'd rather keep my tickets. So marginal utility, the law of diminishing marginal utility, this benefit that decreases as we consume more and more of a good, is also a key point to understand in economics. We can see it here in this graph. This was a video I found online where these two buddies here have been challenging themselves on how many cheeseburgers they can eat without getting incredibly sick. And if you watch the video, you'll see that they're quite happy when they start off. One burger, off we go. And the benefit, if we were to measure the pleasure they get maybe from that first burger, let's say, well, they get 10. If we could somehow measure this somehow, if you could put a number on the benefit they got, the satisfaction, well, let's give it a 10. And then they eat a second burger, and they've already had their first burger. The first burger was super exciting, and the second one's good, maybe not as great as the first one. Okay, so the burger then gave them 8 more units of benefit. They got 8. Third burger, maybe 7. They get up to their 4th burger, and you can see one of the persons already is starting to feel a little bit the effect of having already eaten 3 hamburgers. And this guy's really pleased he's gotten up to 4. So we get to the 4th burger, and you know what the benefit of eating that 4th burger? The 4th burger gives maybe 6.7 units of benefit. The 5th burger, we start seeing the pain being established. They start feeling full, and we can see that the benefit that they're getting of eating one more burger, each additional burger gives them just a little bit less benefit. You know, we're gonna see that the marginal utility, the marginal benefit of having one more burger gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. When we get up here, this is where we're at 10 burgers, and the benefit of that 10th burger is basically 0. Okay? So this idea of the diminishing marginal utility, the size of these bars is decreasing. We're just consuming more and more and more of a good. At some point, we've had enough. We've had enough. Now, the rational consumer makes decisions at the margin. And will ask the very simple question, is it worth it to consume one more cheeseburger? Is it worth it? Does the extra benefit I get of consuming one more cheeseburger exceed the additional cost? Now imagine we use the same measure. Imagine the cost of a cheeseburger is, let's say, 6.5 euros. And let's say this is, hey, give me 10 euros of benefit, 8 euros of benefit, 7 euros of benefit, 6.7. Imagine the extra cost is 6.5. Question: how many burgers would I eat? Well, would I eat the first burger? Yeah, the additional benefit is 10 euros. It cost me 6.5. Let's go for it. The second burger, yeah, I'm going to eat it. It gave me 8 euros of benefit, let's say, and it only cost 6.5. 7th, yeah, okay, 6.5. 6.7, yeah, let's go. 6.5, the benefit is there, the cost the same, let's do it. Would I eat the 6th burger? No, I wouldn't go up to 6 because the 6th burger gives me €6 of benefit and it costs me 6.5. I won't do it. So I'll stop consuming it, the 5th burger. And this is what a rational consumer does. And again, this is an example of how we compare the marginal utility with the marginal cost. The additional cost, 6.5, the additional benefit, 6.5. That's where I'm going to stop. I'm not going to go to the next unit. I'm not going to add one more unit of consumption. And that's marginal analysis. Decisions at the margin also, and this is important, tell you that any costs incurred in the past don't enter into the decision. Okay, I'm not going to go back here and say, well, but look all the money I spent here. Should I buy the next burger? Well, no, the money's spent. You're not going to look at previous decisions, the past expenditures, when making a decision at the margin. If you walk into a movie and you, after 30 minutes of the movie, and you've paid €8 for the movie, let's say, you realize after 30 minutes it's a terrible movie, you're going to make that marginal decision right then. You're going to say, okay, from now on, I've sat here in the movie theater for 30 minutes. Should I continue watching the movie for another hour and a half, or should I go home and have a good time with my friends? You'll probably go home because whether you paid, if you paid the €8 or not for the movie, it really doesn't matter anymore. It's sunk. It's a past decision. You paid the money. You can't get it back, and now you're going to make your decision again. After 30 minutes, you're faced with the marginal decision. What's the benefit of going home and being with friends? What's the benefit of staying here in the cinema? And it's a pretty simple decision to make. The lesson of sunk costs is we need to ignore the past, specifically our past errors. For example, I bought the ticket to the cinema to go to start with. And we make decisions based on what happens today and in the future. So sunk costs are sunk. They're gone. Let them go. We know that in societies we have limited resources, and these limited resources create limited possibilities. And this is what drives, again, the question of scarcity. The production possibilities frontier is a diagram that represents these limits on what we can do or not in an economy. And again, this is a simplified representation of reality, extremely simplified representation of reality. But it shows us, well, what happens if, as a society, we have to make choices of what we produce. We only have a certain amount of natural resources. How do we use them? And the production possibilities frontier tells us, well, if we use our resources to the max, what can we produce? That's the frontier, the limit. So here's a simplified example. In Canada, a worker can produce 20 barrels of oil or 40 tons of lumber. So we've got a table here. We've got all the work in Canada. We can use them to produce 20 barrels of oil or 40 tons of lumber. In Venezuela, a worker can produce 60 barrels of oil or 30 tons of lumber. And this is how we work it out. So first question is, who has the lowest cost to produce what? And this is what's considered an absolute advantage. And a country that uses fewer resources to produce a good compared to the other has an absolute advantage. So who has an absolute advantage in this situation? Well, in Canada, to produce 1 barrel of oil, I need 1/20th of a worker. Okay, so if a worker can make 20 barrels of oil, then I only need 1/20th of a worker to make 1 barrel of oil. In Canada, if I want 1 ton of lumber, well, each worker can make 40 tons, so I need 1/40th of a worker. In Venezuela, 1 worker can produce 60 barrels of oil. Okay, so and 1 worker can produce 30 tons of lumber. So the barrel of oil, I only need 1/60th of a worker, and the ton of lumber over here I've got 1 worker producing 30. So if I only want 1 ton of lumber, not 30, I only need 1/30th of a worker. And so we see that there's an absolute advantage. Canada is producing 1 ton of lumber at a cost less expensive than Venezuela. They're using 1/40th of a worker's time versus 1/30th, so it's smaller. In Venezuela, the cost of producing 1 barrel of oil in Venezuela is cheaper than in Canada. They have a absolute advantage in the production of oil. Now we can plot this out just like we did with the budget constraint. The production frontier can look a lot like a budget constraint. So imagine I've got 50 workers. So I've got 50 workers here in my economy. What can we do? And this is the case of Canada. So in the Canadian economy, I can use the 50 workers to produce oil. And we know that each worker can produce 20 barrels of oil. So if I have 50 workers, I can make 1,000 barrels of oil. And there we are, 1,000 barrels of oil. Or I can use my 50 workers to produce lumber. And we see over here that lumber is produced at a rate of 40 per person. I have 50 people, so I can produce 2,000 tons of lumber. And these are the 2 points on my production frontier. And if I connect those points, we can see that well, this is the limit. I can't produce anything out here. I can't do it. I just can't get out here. I can obviously produce things that are less inside there, but that's the limit of my economy. And we see the opportunity cost, 1 barrel of oil. So if I want to have 1 more barrel of oil, if I'm at 500 and I want to go from the point here 1,500, if I want to, hey, let's have 1 more barrel of oil, we'll have to produce less lumber. Opportunity cost of 1 barrel of oil is 2 tons of lumber. Got to give it up. And the opportunity cost of 1 ton of lumber is a half barrel of oil. We see this from the slope of this line. To get 1,000 barrels of oil, I have to give up 2,000 tons of lumber. Okay, so it's a 1-to-2 relationship. So instead of 1,000 to 1, so I've got to give up 2 tons of lumber, and vice versa. To get 2,000 tons of lumber, I have to give up 1,000 barrels of oil. To get then 1 ton of lumber, I have to give up a half a barrel of oil. And that's the opportunity cost. So the production possibilities frontier shows me all the different combinations I can choose from. I can't produce outside of that frontier. And we also see that the frontier has a downward slope from left to right. The only way I can move from, if I'm producing 500, let's say, of oil and 1,000 of lumber, the only way to produce more oil, I've got to give up lumber. I can't go up from here. This just isn't possible. To move to the right, I've got to give up something. There's an opportunity cost, as I said before. Now, efficiency says that I'm at productive efficiency if I'm on this frontier. If I'm producing on the frontier, I'm at a level of efficiency that's optimal. I can't do better than that. I can't, if I'm productively efficient, I'll give you an example. Productive efficiency says that if to produce more of one item, you have to give up something. Well, if I'm at this point right here, can I produce more oil without giving up lumber? Yeah, well, I can go to over here, for example. It's in the opportunity set. I can move to the right without giving up any lumber. But if I'm here, I'm at 500 barrels of oil and 1,000 tons of lumber. Suppose I want to produce, more. I want to produce 600 barrels of oil. Well, to produce 600 barrels of oil, I can't just pop over there. That doesn't exist. I have to come to here. I have to give up something. So if I'm on this line, the only way to increase production of one good or the other is to give up production of something else. In this case, I could increase production of one good without giving up. And so I'm not productively efficient. To be productively efficient, you need to be on the production possibilities frontier. A choice inside is productively inefficient. Growth in an economy is represented obviously by an expansion of the production possibilities frontier. So if for some reason the economy here grows, well, what are we going to see? We're going to see that, well, because my economy has grown, I'm able to produce more lumber and probably more barrels of oil. And we'll see a movement of this frontier to the right, showing us that, well, you know what, I wasn't able to produce this before, now I can. Now I can produce much more than I did before. I can produce more lumber, I can produce more oil, my economy has grown. And that's typically how we represent the growth in an economy, is through a shift in the production possibilities frontier. Allocative efficiency is another type of efficiency, and that is a whole other question. It's asking us, where do we want to be on the production possibilities frontier? What's the best point? And that depends on a lot of things. We haven't defined that yet, but the best point on there is a whole other issue.